Welcome back. This is the video that I want to make, but really don't. This video is about F-class and traditional high-power shooting, so if you're not into those, watch at your own risk. My only hope is that I can shine some light on a poison that I think will kill F-class shooting in the United States if we don't get a handle on it soon. This is going to be a controversial subject for some shooters and match directors that have already made up their minds on this subject. I only ask that you have an open mind. Like always, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. Before we start, let me apologize for the slow pace of video creation. I've got a little problem that I'm having to work through. So, what am I talking about today? I'm talking about the use of electronic targets in major matches. You know, the state, regional, and national championships? The term registered tournament comes to mind. Before you start hammering away at the keyboard there, buddy, let me be clear. Are you listening? I see comments all the time that tell me that some commenters aren't actually watching the video or listening at all. So put down the keyboard and listen to me. Here, I'll make it easy. I love my shot marker electronic target. It makes it possible for me to do many things that I simply could not do otherwise. I use it every time I go to the range, and I recommend it to other shooters. And no, I do not have a financial relationship with a shot marker maker, other than buying stuff from them at full retail. I also have absolutely no objection to the use of electronic targets at smaller local competitions where there is nothing but bragging rights at stake. Now, was any of that unclear? If you still think I'm down on electronic targets entirely, you need both your hearing and vision checked. Let me whip out the NRA rulebook and quote rule number 4.1.2. 4.1.2 says, electronic target systems. Where electronic target systems are being used, only NRA licensed and certified electronic target systems shall be used in NRA registered tournaments and NRA sanctioned state, regional, and national championship tournaments. NRA approved tournaments and other events where national records are not at issue may use electronic scoring systems that are not NRA licensed and certified. NRA licensed and certified electronic target systems shall meet all minimum requirements set forth elsewhere in these rules. After reading all that, I called the NRA Competitions Division and spoke with the High Power Rifle Deputy Director. At the time of filming in September 2021, the NRA has not yet licensed nor certified a single electronic target system. That means that any regional, state, or national match or registered match shot on electronic targets is invalid at this time. That also means that national records shot on electronic targets since January 2021 are not valid. I'm sorry, guys. Not my rules. Which brings me to a question. Who is responsible for rule compliance? I mean, the NRA happily sanctions registered tournaments that have electronic targets specified in their programs. On the other hand, NRA gets more money per competitor for a registered tournament than an approved one. If we decide not to follow rules because they are inconvenient, do we have any rules? I took this video at Missoula during firing of a registered match. What is this doing on the firing line? Now, witnesses told me that it was only used during sighting shots, but I'll point you to the rulebook. Take a read there. I don't think it's allowed. The point here is that once we decide that some rules are inconvenient or stupid, why not all of them? I mean, recoil is inconvenient, and a rifle heavier than the maximum limit doesn't recoil as much. So I can just run a rifle twice the weight, right? Because it makes me happy. That was hyperbole in case you missed it. You see what I mean, right? Back to why electronic targets don't belong in registered tournaments. Let me explain my reasoning with a simple example. This is a target that a friend of mine shot at the Idaho Mid-Range State Championship. Notice shot number 19? The target had a new paper face on it before starting the relay, so permission was gained to go downrange and take photos. Here is that photo. Interestingly, shot number 19 is nowhere to be seen in the 9 ring. Let me make this a little easier. I'll invert the image of the shot marker screen Then do a little magic with the video editing software. Now I adjust the sizing of the photo to match the rings and move the image around to get a best fit for the shots on the paper. This last step is needed to compensate for the less than perfect calibration of the target center. All right, there we go. It's pretty obvious that shot number 19 isn't where the target system plotted it. In fact, it's right here, in the 10 ring. With matches being won and lost more often than not by a few X's or a single point, this is simply an unacceptable outcome for this shot. Worse yet, we are institutionalizing our own laziness by refusing to reface the targets frequently, resulting in us destroying the evidence of errors after the fact. In this case, we also see significant errors on shots 16, 3, and 5 that change the X count. How many times have you seen a match won or lost on X count alone? I mean, this one relay looks to be a situation where the shooter gained 1 X they really didn't shoot, because the other two canceled each other out. That is in addition to losing 1 point that they really didn't lose. This target is the one I shot at the last day of the Missoula regional match. It has about 200 holes in it. Fortunately, we were able to get a shot plot calculated for this one, and there are a few shots that are off by about half an inch in virtually no wind conditions. And 1 or 2 of them actually changed the score for the shooter, for the worse. Is this the fault of the target system? Well, yes and no. Is one target system better than others? Now I'm picking on Shot Marker because it's the one I use the most, but realistically, any external microphone system is going to behave the same way. So, no. These systems all have limitations, and a little study on how they work will help enlighten us on what we can do to help make them more accurate. That doesn't mean that we can get them to be acceptable for major matches, in my opinion. The technology needs to advance quite a bit before we get there. I'm sure someone out there is yelling at their screen about standard deviations and how the targets are more accurate than human pullers, or that the size of the paper targets change with humidity, and the other drivel that they try to use to cow us into accepting electronic targets for everything. Those arguments are defensive measures by people that do not want to admit that these devices are not yet up to the task. Let me address some of their arguments for a moment. First is the standard deviation of the accuracy. The average or standard deviation of things doesn't really matter to you as an individual shooter. Instead, absolute accuracy and precision on each and every impact is what determines your score and thus the usefulness of a target system. How would you like to come in second place and not be certain that you actually lost? Or win and not be certain that you actually won? That is the place top shooters find themselves in once they learn to shoot well enough that they know where their shots are going. In all honesty, I'd take a really slow target puller over an electronic target that is having problems any day. Next is the argument that paper targets change size with humidity. Well, paper does change size with humidity, but let's consider this for a moment. Unless one end of the line is in the Sahara Desert and the other is in a rainforest, there is little chance that an unfair advantage is to be had for one competitor over another. Even if there were a significant difference, the error here is far less than the bad behavior we're talking about from the electronic targets. While I'm addressing bad behavior, I hear the argument that the differences in pullers is unfair, and everyone gets treated the same by electronic targets. In theory, that could be true. But in the real world, we don't all shoot at the same target, and I regularly see one target perform quite differently than others. As an example, during the recent team match at Missoula, it was discovered that a particular bug in the software, or maybe deficient human operator, allowed one shooter to shoot without a delay, while others had a delay. Likewise, one target frame may be moving more in the wind than another, so that target is more prone to errors, dropped shots, and general chaos for the shooter. In addition to being less accurate, there is nothing more fair about this. Human pullers are fallible, but they aren't worse than electronic targets. They're just different. All right, enough of the soapbox for now. Let's talk about how we got to this sad state of affairs. Before I do that, I want to show you another example created by a friend of mine. He took pictures of targets after he shot them and then plotted the shots from his shot marker over top of it. Once again, this is shot marker because that's what we have. It isn't any different than Silver Mountain or anybody else. Now, I'm talking exclusively about external microphone systems in this section because I do not have experience with enclosed systems and can't comment knowledgeably about them. Let me start with some advice from the maker of the shot marker system. To paraphrase, if your target is misbehaving and showing error messages of any kind, stop shooting and fix the target. From the standpoint of a competitor shooting a match, if your target shows echo shots or has to have shots recovered because the quality is too low, or shows error messages because sensors are firing out of order, or misses shots entirely, you need to stop shooting at that target and get it fixed. Accepting the old, "it's okay, just do this" answer is simply accepting the outcome of the shot errors that will inevitably happen. As my friend put it, if the system shows any errors during a match, stop shooting that target and get reassigned to one that isn't. If none of them will work correctly, perhaps it's time to walk away from that match in protest. It's not like we win anything of value at an F-class match anyway. Let's talk about your electronic target. I recommend that you have an electronic target for load development and practice. In both cases, a fresh paper face is a really good idea because you can identify any errors you encounter in your shooting and calculate them out in your work. The first thing that an electronic target system needs in order to minimize error is, wait, did you notice I used the terminology minimize errors? That was purposeful. My teammates have done an exceptional amount of testing and experimentation in order to get the best out of our systems. Even when we hit all of these points, we still have errors that exceed the extremely generous quarter-inch number that the NRA allows. And no, statistics boy, this is not a quarter-inch standard deviation. That is a no more than a quarter-inch ever standard. Even at that, I've scored countless shots over the years that 40,000ths of an inch determine 9 or 10, 10 or X. For the jokers out there that say just shoot closer to center, it didn't do my friend any good, did it? That's right, I already put my soapbox away. The first thing that makes a target more accurate is to avoid near simultaneous bullet shockwave arrivals. Sound travels and can make it really difficult for the system to know which snap came from which bullet, and if it was the one that passed through the target. I'm not going to go too deep into the physics here, but if you want to know more about individual subjects presented, leave a comment. If enough people want to know about something in particular, I'll make a video on it. I've spoken already about near simultaneous arrival of sounds. Now we have to talk about echoes. Yes, the sounds from bullets bounce off of things. I've seen targets plot 2 shots for every 1 fired when we hit a perfect situation with echoes. Filtering within the software can help, but it can't fix every situation. To prevent this, the target needs to be as far as possible from the ground and hard surfaces. It seems that grassy ground is less prone to this, but in general, getting the microphones farther above the ground is always better. The next thing is having a solidly built and mounted target frame. It must be absolutely rigid. It cannot be moving around in the wind. If the sensors are changing position relative to one another, the results are going to vary a lot. If the target's tilting in the wind, it will just add to your misery. Next, we have to have the sensors as close together as possible for the target being used. That means not using a 6-foot square frame to hold a 300-yard target. Errors have a magnitude that is proportional to the distance between sensors. Next is bullet velocity. The higher the impact velocity, the more accurate the system will be, especially when a crosswind is blowing across the face of the target. In simple terms, the wind blows a sound one direction faster than the other, resulting in an error. That would be okay if the wind never changed, but when was the last time you saw that? Anyway, going through the target at a higher Mach number will result in less time for the wind to move the sound. That's why the targets are more accurate at closer ranges than farther. It is also why the brain boxes at the target must be sheltered from the sun. The speed of sound is determined by temperature. If we sense a higher than true temperature, the target will tend to mislocate every shot closer to center of the sensor array. You can make your electronic target significantly better by using my advice, but it still doesn't mean it's going to be good enough for prime time. I've shot at registered matches that use electronic targets. I knew they were not allowed when I shot, Thinking on it, I simply added to the enabling of this problem. I'll have to take some time this winter and do some soul searching on how to proceed forward. I really want F-Class to grow and continue to get better, but electronic targets are not the way, at least not in their current implementation. All right, thank you for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.